going to go ahead and record this. Hello and welcome everyone to Vocal Health for Voice Actors. My name is Cristina Milizia and I'm the president of the Global Voice Acting Academy. And I'm here with my distinguished guest, John Cavaluso. Hello, John.
Hello, Christina.
Yay! John is amazing. So just a little background on both of us. Again, we're both voiceover coaches for the GVAA with a background in vocal technique. My parents are both classically trained singers. My father with a master's degree in voice, and my mother is a few weeks away from finishing her doctorate in vocal performance. So I grew up with people giving me vocal technique lessons around the house, which was really annoying when I was a little kid, but now I think it's awesome. So funny how things come in handy later. I've also been a voice actor for 23 years, since I was 8 years old, specializing in toys and games. I've been doing a number of cartoons this past year for Monster High, and then also my first part for Disney Junior's Doc McStuffin. So definitely use this stuff on a regular basis, and I'm really excited that you're all here, and thank you for coming. So hopefully this will be a helpful webinar for you. So John, do you want to just introduce yourself really quickly?
My name is John Cavaluso. I am a voice actor. I had a conservatory training background. I studied Meisner technique in New York and studied with teachers from William Esper Studio, Juilliard, and then got my degree at Rutgers in acting. I've been a voice actor for 31 years. I am the voice of most of the major museums of the world, so if you've ever taken an audio tour at a museum, the chances are pretty good that I was the person who was telling you what you were looking at. And I also do commercial work. I've done work for Disney, MGM, the Discovery Channel, Pandora, and Silicon Valley firms all up and down California. And that's basically my background. Right now I am a contractor for Pandora. And so I do a lot of commercial work now. And so these kind of techniques of being able to warm up quickly and safely and keep my voice ready to work at any time are very, very helpful. So that's my background.
Yeah, no, John, and seriously, if you go online and listen to his demos, you will hear that he is literally the voice in every museum everywhere. You're like, oh yeah, it's pretty amazing. I'm thrilled that he's here also because we also represent the two ends of the voice spectrum here in terms of vocal range, me being on the higher end and him being on that beautiful low voice of God thing, as I mentioned in the interview with Phil Deweese, which I just think is just gorgeous. So without further ado, vocal health for voice actors. Yay! Okay, so just really quickly, this is a copyrighted presentation. If you would like to share it with anyone in terms of the slides or anything of that nature, please feel free to email me and just ask for my permission. I'd be happy to share that information with you in case you would like the notes at a later time. But do ask permission so that I can just, having our consent would be much appreciated. This will be posted to YouTube as well later, so you will be able to view it at a later time for your reference. Okay, so here we go. So here's a list that I put together of all of the ways in which the health of our voice can be affected, all the ways that we can affect it. So basically, there's 9 that I was able to put together from various sources. Talk for a living. Can't you tell? Number 1, proper vocal technique. Obviously, that's one of the major reasons why a lot of you guys are here. We all know that vocal technique is really, really important. As voice actors, many of us go to singing training in order to get this technique. John and I are also working on a product that's specifically voiceover technique training for voice actors. So I am hoping to make all of this information more accessible for voice talent moving forward because it's so important to what we do, especially since what we do is so extreme compared to a lot of other industries that do use voice work of any kind. Number 2, hydration and water. So we all also know that hydration and water is important for your voice. I'm going to go into more detail specifically why in terms of the physical apparatus, how that works, and the placement of the vocal cords themselves to be more clear about that. Number 3, vocal hygiene. And which kind of leads into number 4, the health of the body. So making sure that your entire body, including the throat and all of the the anatomy in that area is healthy and clean, very important. Number 5, the food we put in our bodies, where some people just seem to be able to kind of eat anything and it doesn't affect their voices. Many people, this is not the case, as with people who experience acid reflux. So we're going to go into some of that as well today. Number 6, muscle tone. Your actual muscle tone has an effect on your voice, so we'll discuss that as well. Number 7, rest. We all know that we tend to sound fantastic if we've gotten some good sleep, and not so much when we haven't. So, and that's just pretty universal. Rest is amazing. Number 8, care during traveling, ways in which to make sure that you don't become dehydrated or, the stress of travel affects your instrument. And number 9, probably most importantly, I prepared an entire kind of regime of suggestions for proper work habits during voiceover sessions, for before, during, and after. So we'll go over that as well towards the end of our presentation. So, starting with number 1, vocal technique. Develop, strengthen, and maintain your instrument. That is really the point of vocal technique, not only because you're going to have a better idea of what your vocal range is, and you're going to have more opportunities for work if you know how to use the instrument, making sure that it is strong so that you can do those long sessions and it's not going to wear you out, and that's something that you can maintain as well. People who do character work versus narration work come at this from very different angles, but everybody needs it the same way, because character actors, what we do is very extreme. So again, I'm more on the character side, and John does a lot of narration. And so we've had discussions about this, and I have also with other talent. People who do narration as well have to do audio for many, many, many hours in a row. So you really have to be aware of how to maintain and properly care for your instrument in order to keep up with a regime like that. I apologize, there's sirens in the background. Okay. So making sure that you do a good warm up and a warm down every day, really important. This isn't something that takes a lot of time. 15, 20 minutes. I think mine is 15 minutes every day. So those proper vocal exercises. Breathing technique. Without breath, there is no sound. Learning to breathe properly is probably one of the most important things in vocal technique. You have to be able to breathe correctly in order to support your sound properly. So making sure that you do learn how to breathe correctly and using your diaphragm and all of that is something you should absolutely put a priority on if you're not as well versed in that area. Phonation, which is basically just sound. So really understanding the way that resonance works. For those of you who saw the presentation or the interview I did with Bill DeWeese, I went over how to increase your vocal resonance by lifting the soft palate and lowering the back of the tongue. That's just one tool in increasing your resonance. There are many different ways to affect that vocal resonance in your range and in your sound production. So that's just one way, and getting to know all of those options will help you dramatically. Understanding your range, as well as what Pat Fraley in his work calls placements. Again, I put this in here it applies to all voice actors, but he describes it a lot in his character work development exercises as where the voice is placed, and that really is different areas of that you're going to focus on in the physicality of your voice, and manipulating that anatomy to create the sound that you like of the desired effect. And then the physiology of the vocal apparatus. Now this is where I get really excited because I was a personal trainer for many years, and so I'm a total nerd for anatomy. So I totally love how the actual physical structures of the way that your voice works, all of the different muscles that contribute to your sound, how all of those work is absolutely fascinating to me. So the way I approach vocal technique is really from a kinesthetic point of view. I don't tend to do as well with visualization exercises for singing technique, which I know many people use. But for me, I like to know what all the muscles do. How can I affect them? How can I very, pinpoint exactly how to change a sound in my voice? So that's what fascinates me, and having control over all of these tiny things. And you can see this picture here. You have the tongue, you have the palate, You have your hyoid bone, your larynx down below, in your jaw. There's muscles that innervate all of these things, and changing them really affects your sound dramatically. So vocal technique is super important. This is a more in-depth picture of some of the other factors in the physiology of the vocal apparatus. You can see how the vocal cords, the cartilage, moves and opens and closes to create the change in the vocal folds that you want. Here are your vocal folds over here. The way the diaphragm relaxes and contracts and how that affects your breathing and your lungs. All of these things are really, really important to learn about. It's complicated and it's fascinating at the same time. But if you do care about your instrument, it is worthwhile to spend the time learning about all of these specific things. Okay, so the last thing I'm really going to mention about vocal technique is that vocal technique coaching is interactive. You can watch webinars about anatomy and all of these things that will help you understand how these different physical aspects work and how the sound should be. But I have to say that you have to learn vocal technique with the coach because somebody has to observe you. Even though I know a lot about vocal technique, I take voice lessons, and I take voice lessons with John, who's here on this call, because when I have a vocal issue, what I think I sound like isn't necessarily reality. And even if I do it in front of a mirror, there are things that he's going to be able to see and hear and pinpoint that I may not necessarily catch. So having one-on-one feedback is super, super important, and using your voice is a physical exercise. So I love this picture. I especially love this picture because this is something that opera singers often do. You see how they move the lips forward in this very open kind of cupping position. And my father explained that to me once. They're actually increasing the length of the resonance chamber. So it actually adds more resonance to the sound. So there's actually a reason why they do that. Which I think that's fascinating. So it's not just silly looking. There is actually a reason behind that. So just really quick, in case you guys haven't really seen the vocal cords in great detail, I thought I'd just put a few pictures in here because they're kind of weird looking. And just for shock, I thought we would just show the real vocal cords in case you haven't seen those. Here they are. These were the happiest looking vocal cords I could find. There's some really scary pictures online. Don't look them up; you'll be terrified. But no, these are healthy, happy vocal cords as far as I can tell. This is what they look like when they are open and when they are closed. It is when they are closed that the sound is created. So it is air going through the vocal cords. I tried to say cords and folds at the same time. That causes the sound to vibrate, very much like a guitar string, anything of that nature. It's that vibration going through is what causes the sound. Everyone with me so far? Good. Anything you'd like to add, John?
Nope, it all sounds good.
Okay.
One thing, in terms of having someone listen to you, it's also important because a lot of the sound that you hear from yourself is being conducted through the tissue, the soft tissue, and the bones in your head. And so you may not actually sound anything like you think you sound.
That is a really good point.
Your eardrums are inside all of this tissue, and the sound is being conducted through the tissue.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, many of us have gotten used to the way we sound when we record, but when you're doing vocal exercises too, that again is probably a little bit different territory than we're used to hearing as well. So yes, it really, really, really is important. So. Okay, so number 2, we'll go on to hydration and water, and we'll come back to vocal technique a little bit later if you guys have some questions. So hydration and water. Okay, here's the most important thing, and I find that a lot of voice actors are not aware of this. When you drink water, liquid does not actually touch the vocal cords at all. The vocal cords are part of the larynx, which is located in your airway, and the epiglottis, which is the thing that closes off the airway, it's above your larynx. So you'll see down here, here's the larynx down below, and you'll see the epiglottis, which is above it. So that completely closes when you drink water. So there's never any water going by the vocal folds. So why do we drink water? In order to, why does everyone say, oh, drink lots and lots and lots of water in order to keep your vocal folds happy? The reason is that, it's your overall hydration level that is affected when you drink enough water. And so the important thing to take away from this is that, drinking water on a regular basis is what's going to keep your whole system hydrated. And that's what's going to keep your vocal folds from drying out. So, don't drink a ton of water right before you go in. It's not going to help you. Start drinking water before you get in the booth, at least, a few hours, several hours before, to make sure that everything has that nice hydration level that you want it to. So, avoid or reduce caffeine and alcohol. Um, Many people drink tea when they do voiceover. That's fine. I would keep it to herbal if you can, because caffeine is dehydrating. So, many people, again, are very serious about their caffeine. I'm also very serious about my caffeine. I love my coffee. I know that Bill DeWeese drinks coffee all day during his voiceover sessions, and doesn't have a problem. So this really will depend on the person, especially the caffeine thing. It does dehydrate you. If you can balance it with enough water, feed the addiction. That's cool. Just pointing it out, it is something that's dehydrating. Alcohol, a lot of people are like, well, I perform better when I have like a drink. I understand that. You kind of feel like warm, and everything feels kind of warm and fluid, and like everything's flowing. I get that, but it really is actually dehydrating. So I wouldn't recommend it before or during a performance. And obviously soda is just, yeah, awful for the voice. Things that you can do to increase, if you have a lot of dryness, you can steam, you can vaporize. Uh, ENTs recommend cool mist to reduce the risk of bacteria. Nasal sprays, stuff that's just a saline, something very, mild, can help keep all of those membranes moist as well, because it is your entire sinus cavity, and the entire inner region. All of that is connected. So moisture overall in any of those areas is going to be helpful. Look at this amazing picture. This was actually the nicest picture I could find of mucus online. It's really gross if you look up online. I was like, okay, this is actually the best looking one. So don't look it up online. It's gross. Thick mucus, many of us experience mouth noise. There can be mucus buildup where you're just kind of clearing your throat all of the time. It's important, mucus is just part of life and part of being a human being. So dealing with that mucus is really important as a voice actor, because it does affect our sound. First of all, increasing your water intake will also help with thick mucus. So, just drinking a lot of water, again, will help kind of get all of that moving and flush everything out. Mucus also can build up depending on what food you eat, and by having an acid reflux reaction to foods. So again, we'll go into that a bit more later. So just something to be aware of. There are more mucus-causing foods which can interfere with your work. And you'll see here on the side, warm up. Warming up helps redistribute mucus as well. So, you wake up and everything's kind of like, kind of dry, but you're still kind of stuffy. Warming up will help clear and redistribute all of that mucus, so it's not accumulated in these like weird kind of sticky clumps that kind of gets uncomfortable. So, doing a good warm-up helps move all of that around. So do your warm-ups. Okay, vocal hygiene, again, mucus. I never thought in my life I'd be doing a presentation, and I was like, okay, let's talk about mucus. It's funny. Life is funny. Okay, so vocal and throat sprays. This is often a popular topic of conversation for voiceover talent, because there are many voiceover, vocal sprays out there. There are some good ones, and they can be calming and soothing for the back of the throat. But again, be aware that even if something is soothing for the back of the throat, unless you're going to spray and then slightly inhale, it's not going to get on your vocal cords. So it may have a soothing effect, but technically it's not going to coat your vocal cords at all if you just drink something or swallow something. So, but again, they can be very helpful. They can have a soothing effect. I recommend only herbal sprays. Nice herbal sprays can also potentially reduce bacteria, which is great. So again, there's some good ones out there. Singer's Saving Grace, Entertainer's Secret, I think. There's a few that are really nice. VO Peeps also makes one. So Never, ever, ever use a throat numbing spray. Ever, ever, ever. Unless, basically what it can do is you're unaware of the state of your cords. So even if you're not necessarily doing a voiceover, it might cause you to overuse your voice. You might be dehydrated because you're sick. It's just not really advisable. Your throat is sore for a reason, and it's just better to be aware of what it's doing, and drink kind of warm teas or some other methodology. It's not going to help. So I don't recommend it, so that you can stay in touch with your body and what's going on with it. There are drugs that affect the voice. And again, for those of us who have been forced to perform when we are sick and hope that the client doesn't notice, I've definitely been at a session on Sudafed before. So just be aware that a lot of these drugs are extremely dehydrating. So when you have to use them for health reasons, drink extra water and try to reduce talking to a minimum if you can. Examples are Benadryl, Sudafed, Sinutab, Dristan, Tavist, all of those. So if you have allergies, just something to be aware of. If you have an allergic nasal disease, there are some other medications such as Beckinase and Flonase, and that's a nasal steroid that may be a better alternative for you. So, okay, food. This is the tough one. I love this picture. I was like, wow, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about food. There are acidic and mucus-causing foods. This basically, if you reduce acidic and mucus-causing foods, it's going to reduce damage to your throat and your vocal cords, and it's going to decrease any growth or bacteria in the mucus, which will also reduce the need to clear your throat, which is damaging to the vocal cords. So why does acidic food affect the vocal cords? Now, before I jump into this whole thing with food, I want to mention there are some people that can eat this stuff and they seem to be fine. It doesn't seem to affect their work. Some people, it affects their work very seriously. And my entire voiceover career have never had a problem with acid reflux. And then all of a sudden, a year ago, I started losing my voice for no explicable reason. And I went to the ENT, and they, put the scope down my throat and looked at my vocal cords, and they were like, well, you have swelling in the vocal cords. And I said, what? So, and again, you may or may not even feel acid reflux. There are people who experience it that feel absolutely nothing. I felt absolutely nothing. I just started losing my voice. But basically, there are foods that when this acid comes back up from your stomach, it causes swelling in the throat and the vocal cords. Now, swollen cords, the reason why this actually causes you to lose your voice is because the vocal folds are vibrating, but since they're swollen, they can't completely make contact anymore. They're not coming together properly and efficiently the way that they're supposed to be. And so since they're not making efficient contact, it causes you to have to work a lot harder to create the sound. And your body has to work a lot harder to create the sound. And then the vocal fold is having to do all this extra movement to try to make, the proper sound that you want. And all that extra effort actually completely can tire it out, can dry it out. And it's just, can cause further swelling, which can also eventually lead to nodes and a number of other vocal problems. So here's a list of acidic and mucus-causing foods. Some of these are very healthy options. So again, this list was awful when I first got it. I was like, are you serious? Are you serious? This is terrible. For those of you who are a big fan of dairy, I love dairy. I was shocked to find out that it was like the first thing that my ENT told me that I had to eliminate. I was very bummed. I will say that I have not had any mouth noise since not eating dairy. So just something to think about. Tomato-based foods, tomatoes are acidic, any kind of citrus fruits, mint, which is crazy, I didn't know. Mint flavorings, I had to switch from like mint gum to, fruit-flavored gum, onions and garlic, all of these things. Again, many people are unaffected by any of this, but it very well could be affecting your voice if you're finding your voice is getting tired more easily, or you're losing it at any point. These are just some things to think about that may be having an effect. All right, John, did you have anything to add so far? Just jump in if you want.
I find personally that dairy dairy products tend to make me, it increases the amount of yamming or mouth noise.
Yeah.
That's just personally, I can feel the kind of mucus buildup from milk especially. So I try to avoid that if I'm going to be recording.
Yep.
But the acid reflux, which I have a problem with,
You do? I didn't even know that.
I do. It will irritate the soft palate. And so what
Really?
you were talking about earlier about extending your range by lifting the soft palate, if if that if those mucosa of those membranes are irritated, they won't lift.
Wow.
And
Well,
so
that's
you
crazy.
definitely, I have antacid tablets right by my microphone here.
Wow. I didn't know that. Crazy. I swear it's like
That's
age. It's like age too. The older I get, the more issues I have. Cool. Well, and again, it's like, two of my favorite foods were dairy and tomato, and it was rough, for sure. But it's like this is our job. This is what we love to do, and it's worth it. It's worth it. Your voice or tomatoes. Cool. So let's go into muscle tone and overall health. Exercise obviously keeps your body strong and healthy, but some people don't realize that this is really, really important for your voiceover. Why? Because it really works out, especially the muscles of respiration. So, all of your intercostal muscles, your diaphragm, your lungs, all of this stuff is something, if you work it out and you get lots of blood flow pumping through there, all of that is going to strengthen your lungs, it's going to strengthen your diaphragm. Um, and so that's really, really important. Get your exercise in. Not only that, but a healthy body is going to absorb water and nutrients more effectively. When your body is strong, your body recovers from damage more quickly. So if you blow your voice out, or something else happens where your body or your system is just tired, you're going to bounce back a lot faster if your body is in shape. And it also helps remove toxins from the body more quickly. Another, of course, is increased lung capacity. That's a big one. So, don't have to be a crazy swimmer like this guy. I just liked him because he looked like he was breathing heavy. Um, but, get something in. Smoking! We all know this one. And there are voice actors that still smoke. And we all know Mel Blanc had like a respirator at the end. Although I was told that was just like a placebo, apparently, to just try to get him to stop smoking. But yeah, cigarettes are obviously awful for the vocal cords. Can lead to cancer of the larynx, chronic laryngitis, all kinds of problems. So, and reduced lung capacity. I smoked myself in my early 20s phase, and I lost the top octave of my range. So it definitely has an effect. Now I'm a good voice actor. Let's see. And I need those voices. That's what I got cast for on Disney Junior, like a little baby, tiny, tiny baby voice. So you gotta have that. Rest. Get plenty of sleep. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Rest when your voice is tired. We're gonna go into resting a little bit more. Okay, rest. Rest, rest, rest. This is a long list. So get a lot of sleep. In general, like don't speak excessively in general. I find this is hard for voice actors because we like to talk. I have problems with this. Whenever I'm on vocal rest, I'm like the worst. So take that as you will. I know it's hard. Avoid super lengthy conversations on the phone. I mean, a lot of this is too like if your voice is damaged or tired, this is the stuff you really should. If your voice hurts, pull out this list because this is really, this is what's going to help you recover. So, lengthy phone conversations. If you're in a 2 or 3 hour conversation, just rest your voice for 10 minutes. I mean, 10 minutes is not that long. Um, if you're doing rigorous voiceover performance, rest for even just a minute or two for every 20 minutes. So if you're in a big video game session where you're screaming your lungs out or you're singing for something, again, very intense, or even if it's just a very intense character, no one's going to be upset if you ask for, hey, can I just rest for, just a minute, every 15 or 20 minutes. No one will be upset. We know that this is hard stuff, a lot of what we do. Talk at low or moderate volume. Minimize talking in loud environments. I find that this one can be really tough, especially if you're like in a restaurant, and it's just a really noisy restaurant. Um, but really don't raise your voice unnecessarily. Again, this is your instrument, this is your livelihood. Save it for when someone's paying for you, paying for it. That's what I'm like. You're not paying me enough for me to talk loudly. So, if you do have to talk in a loud circumstance, get close to the person. It's really not that hard. Just go get close to them and talk to them like it's a secret. It'll be fine. You can be cute about it. Don't shout and scream at people again unless you are being paid. Bob Bergen refuses to do any screaming at all, even for, he won't do video games apparently. Or if he does, he just doesn't do the screaming part because he just doesn't want to damage his voice in any way. You can whistle, you can clap your hands. There's lots of ways to get people's attention. You should especially not scream or yell in dry climates because, again, it's drier. So it's going to damage your vocal cords more quickly. Smoke-filled or dusty environments. If you're in a very dry place, vaporizers or humidifiers may be helpful. So places like Phoenix or Las Vegas. Another thing to be aware of is that if you're going in and out of changing climates where it's just like, all of a sudden it's really hot, then it's really cold, that can also irritate the vocal cords. So just something to be aware of. Okay, so I put this together for all voice actors of the world for basically, okay, if you're going to work, your preparation, your performance, and then your recovery. Depending on how intense your job is or where you're going, apply as needed. Oh, by the way, John, did you have anything to add again up until this point?
Nope. I'm with you.
Okay, cool. You always have such insightful, good comments. I don't want to miss anything. Okay, so the day before, if I were in a class, I'd be like, who here has been flown in for a voiceover and then have to do it the same day? Many of us. A lot of times we'll get hired for jobs and then we're forced to fly in the same day. If you can, avoid flying on the same day as a voiceover. If you can fly the day before, please do. The reason why, and I'm not going to go into great detail right now about airplanes, you can look it up. Airplanes are extremely dehydrating.
Yeah, they are.
Really dehydrating, and not only that, the volume, when you're up in the air, I can't remember the decibel level, but it's very loud. So if you end up talking, like in a conversation with the person next to you, your voice will be raised because it's just such a loud environment that you're going to end up you end up sort of semi-shouting the whole time, even if you don't realize it. It's very loud, it's very dehydrating, very dry. So it's not great to just hop off a plane and then go do a voiceover. Not ideal. So if you can avoid it, I would recommend it. So my parents always tell me to rest my voice the day before, so just, no big presentations or like any kind of heavy voiceover work. Obviously, if you're a really busy voice actor, it may not be an option for you, but, get a little extra rest if you can. Get plenty of sleep. The day of, get up at least 3 or 4 hours before you perform. Don't roll out of bed and go do a voiceover. The reason why is because it takes your body a good 3 or 4 hours to wake up before you're really kind of ready to go. For those, I used to, there was a time in my life when I noticed that my voice was really low in the morning. So I would wake up and then immediately record so I could have that nice low sound. Because me, I have like this voice that's on helium, right? So I was like, oh, okay, this is the only time I can do anything over age 20. But it started damaging my voice. And it's because, your voice isn't warm. If your voice isn't warmed up and ready to go, it's not in a healthy place to be doing voiceover. So even if you're looking for that desired low effect, don't do it. It doesn't mean that you have to wait 3 or 4 hours every time you perform, especially if you're just doing an audition and it's due at 10 a.m. or something. But, ideally, let your body wake up, let your voice fully wake up, do a good warm up, be awake, get a good breakfast, and again, hydrate, get good hydration going on. And again, that's all going to make for a much better voiceover job. Bringing us into number 2, drink plenty of water, starting several hours before your job. Don't eat mucus-creating foods before the voiceover, dairy. If you want to do it after, go for it. But I wouldn't advise it before. It's just going to reduce your mouth noise. And Perform a short warm up before you work. You don't need to do a lengthy warm up. So if you normally do 20 minutes, you don't need to do 20 minutes because you're about to go use your voice like some crazy thing. Just do a 10-minute one, and that's fine. You don't want to do anything super, super strenuous. Never perform without warming up. Again, this is something I was guilty of, especially in my wild and crazy youth. I used to do all kinds of voiceover without warming up. I would just jump in there. When I was young, I recovered well. As I get older, not so much. And it's just not really good for you. So, do warm up. It's a muscle, like anything else. You wouldn't go, do some crazy exercise without warming up, or if you did, you'd injure yourself. Stay hydrated during your voiceover. Sip water on breaks while working. I recommend room temperature water at all times. Don't drink cold water during a voiceover because that can shrink, cause your vocal cords to contract. You want everything to be nice and warm, moving easily, flowing easily. You can have warm tea. Again, herbal only is a good voiceover drink. And take a 10-minute break if you've recorded for 2 hours. Again, that's pretty normal. Sometimes people take a break every hour, 5-minute break. But, if you're in a session and they're drilling you hard, it's perfectly reasonable to ask for a 10-minute break after 2 hours of recording. Ask for it. It's needed. Just let it rest for a minute. And again, rest your voice for 1 or 2 minutes if you're doing very strenuous voiceover for, 15 or 20 minutes. Okay, post-work. Warm down. A lot of people don't warm down. Sometimes I still don't warm down, but I want to. Basically, just taking your instrument out of like going 200 miles an hour into getting it to relax. Even just gentle humming. You can also kind of massage your neck a little bit. That can start to reduce tension in your throat. For me, sometimes I do lower larynx exercises because my work is so high pitched. Then my larynx is raised for a lot of my work, so lowering the larynx purposefully will reduce that muscle tension, lengthen all those muscles out. Rest your voice afterwards, depending how vocally demanding the session was. Keep talking to a minimum. Maybe even just for an hour or two, and then go back to your normal activities. Rehydrate, recovery meal if necessary. I don't know if you're like me, but I'm starving after a voiceover. Always hungry. Are you hungry? Is that just me?
Oh yeah, I always am.
Okay, yeah, I have to eat so much food afterwards. Again, relaxing the throat muscles. Then, if you want to have a cold, icy drink, go for it. It'll kind of cool everything down in the throat, maybe reduce some swelling. My mom loved to have frozen yogurt afterwards because, again, it was like the dairy factor and it was cold. Like the treat after, where you can cheat and enjoy your achievement that you finished your work for the day. And so that was. Did you have anything you wanted to add so far, John?
Nope. That all sounds great.
Cool. Just really quickly, that's pretty much it for today. If you want more information about vocal technique, John and I both teach vocal technique for the GVAA. Up here is a link to where the webinars and group classes are on the Global Voice Acting Academy site, along with a description of week 1 and week 2 of more in-depth vocal training. Again, it's really hard to do any sort of interactive element on a webinar because you do need to see people, what they're doing with their face, their jaw, and their bodies in order to accurately assess if the sound production is correct. But for that more interactive element, we use Google Hangouts the same way that Bill DeWeese does for some of his classes, where it's about 8 people a class, and that way you can learn a proper warm up. If that is something you're interested in, you can just contact me or contact John, and we'd be happy to assist you with anything that you need.
And I would urge all of you to at least get that under your belt, a good warm-up regimen.
Yeah, absolutely. A good warm-up regime. If you don't know how to properly warm up, it's worth the time. Because again, whether or not you do it in a group class or you do it just one-on-one with somebody, record it, you have it forever. You know how to do that. It's 1 hour of your time making sure that you learn how to properly use. And there's so many different areas of your voice to develop. You may end up learning something that's really, really essential for you, or discover that there's something that you're doing that isn't healthy and it can prevent problems later. So I highly agree. Get a proper warm up at some point done with a vocal coach watching you, making sure that you have that in a good place. So that's pretty much it. Yay! So I'm gonna go ahead and open it up to questions now. Let's see. Let me grab all the people. So now we'll just open it up to questions. For those of you who know how this works, next to your names on the attendees list, there's a way to raise your hand. There's a little hand icon. And if you would like to ask a question, you just raise your hand. I will ask that if you ask a question and then you're done, please take the icon off so I don't randomly call on you by accident again. Cool. So here we go. I'm going to start with Steve Latham. Am I saying that correctly? Hi, Steve. Hello? Oh, hello?
Hi, no, that was an accident. I'm sorry. There are no questions.
Oh, okay. Well, hello and
I
goodbye, Steve.
apologize, but I am enjoying the program. A
Oh,
lot of the great info. Thank you.
oh, great. Well, thank you for coming. Bye. Nice to meet you. Okay, so that was a joke. Okay, Susan Johan or Johan? Hi, Susan. Susan? Hello? Susan? I'm not sure what happened there. Susan? Okay, I'm not sure. Can't hear her. Susan, check your settings and make sure that your mic isn't muted, perhaps. And I'll come back to you. Okay. Takia? I'm sorry, I'm probably saying that totally wrong. Hello?
No, you're saying it right. Hi.
Hi.
How
How are you? How do I say your name?
Tia.
Tia?
Takia. It's
Oh.
kind of like, tiger. Sort of.
Oh, got it. Cool.
Okay.
Say it for me again.
Takia.
Takia. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's a very lovely name. Cool. Well, welcome. What's up?
Thanks.
You can ask anything of me or John.
Okay. Well, either one of you could answer this, but, so, do you have any, vocal coaches who work, with your company?
Yep, John and I are both vocal coaches.
Ah, okay. Because I don't know if you can tell, but, I, have a bit of a lisp, and, I've been told that, I need a vocal coach or, some speech classes to kind of, work on that a little
Yeah,
bit.
absolutely. And we do have that. Obviously John and I are both more vocal technique coaches. We also have a dialect and accent specialist, and he also works in accent modification and speech issues as well. His name is Doug Honoroff.
Mm-hmm.
And if you would like to email me, I can connect you with him after the program, and it would be a pleasure. He would be a perfect person for you.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm going to go ahead and put my email address up so that people have it. So feel free to just send me an email, and we'll take care of you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Okay, and go ahead and take your hand down if you would, and that way I don't get confused. Cool. So let's see. Cheryl? Hello, Cheryl?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
This is John and Cristina. Hi.
It is. Hi.
First of all, thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time to provide this information for us. It's invaluable, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
You touched briefly on the medications to use and not to use. I love dairy and caffeine, and I actually had an audition this afternoon and had quiche and coffee and whipped cream and all the bad things. So
Yum.
my question, so you can live vicariously through what I ate today. My question is about throat lozenges like honey or lemon or licorice, or what would you advise if you have something that you're trying to cut down on the mucus before a session?
You know, the honey and lemon is fine as long as it doesn't have some kind of an analgesic or numbing effect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically,
You want to avoid anything like chloroseptic because that will actually, that it makes your soft palate unresponsive, and you're going to end up straining your voice.
yeah. So
But something like, if
anything
you
that
have like
numbs
a
you.
honey lemon drop, that's fine.
Yep.
Okay.
So just
Perfect.
anything where it's like natural herbal ingredients, you're probably going to be fine. You know, I usually use like kind of just Ricola, which because it doesn't have, it's just herbs for the most part. Even like Halls, I think, has more of a numbing effect, I'm pretty sure. So, you know, and they feel good at the time, but, you know, that can actually make it worse. So just see if you can find kind of an all-natural kind of throat drop, and you should be in better shape.
Thank you. I actually really love Ricola. And if I can, I ask you one more question, please? It's as to where you, because I looked at your website. Are you in the Bay Area, or you're in? Where are you in this world?
You're everywhere. No, that's actually the what we're so excited about is that we don't have a location. We're completely an online service, so all of our coaching is done via webcam.
Okay.
So our
So you
coaches
wouldn't
are,
actually do in person.
well, I mean, if there's somebody who lives, if one of the coaches live in the same city as as one of the people, and they want to do an in-person training, then they can absolutely. Um, our
Okay.
goal was to gather the best coaches all over the country, and our coaches, we have several in the Bay Area, we have several in Los Angeles, we have one in New York, one in Florida, and one in Chicago.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again. I appreciate your time.
No, thank you. All right, cool. Oh, cool. She took down her hand. Well done. Okay, and we're gonna unmute Outie. Outie?
Yes.
Hi, I can barely hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this any better?
Can you put it a little bit louder? I can kind of hear you though.
Test, test, test.
That's better.
There you go. A little better.
Okay.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
Am I saying your name right?
Audie. Yep.
Audie. Okay. Sorry.
Mm.
No problem.
How can we help you?
My question was mostly centered around positioning. I see a lot of voice talent on YouTube and webinars and things like that in a sitting position, especially when giving demonstrations and whatnot. And yet, I also see a lot of in-studio work where talent is standing. So I was wondering if that is obviously your diaphragm and your awareness and how air is passing through those vocal cords is very important. How can you sit and deliver a performance, because sitting is obviously more comfortable for long hours of narration and whatnot, without falling into bad habits like slouching or getting a little too comfortable and it affecting your performance?
John, do you want to talk about that?
Yes. I find when I'm working in the studio, normally I stand. When I'm working from home and recording, I'm sitting. But I try to make sure that, if anything, I'm leaning slightly forward. If you're sitting down, the thing you want to avoid mostly is leaning back, because that activates the muscles on the front of the throat. And that will constrict your voice, and it keeps you from being able to resonate cleanly. So you want to sit as straight up as you can, maybe leaning a little bit forward. And this is a bit of kind of Alexander technique of visualization. You want to think about like there's a thread going through the top of your head that's pulling it up. That keeps you kind of solid. Your core is activated, your diaphragm is energized, and it keeps you from flexing the muscles on the front of your throat, which are going to hurt your voice. Does that help at all?
Yeah, so something more like a stool as opposed to a lazy boy.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. You want to avoid at all costs. You want to avoid the
Yeah.
trying to lean back, because that immediately I can feel the strain on my throat as soon as I put my head back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and obviously making sure your mic position isn't like you're not looking up, or you're like, making sure it's at a very neutral position will help as well. Um, just quickly, I have actually John and I both have spinal injuries, which is really interesting. We both have dealt with really trying to make sure that, your alignment is correct when you're performing. I know we've both discussed that at various points. For me, I used to exclusively be a stander during voiceover because I thought my energy was better, my breathing was better, all of the above, as you pointed out. But now, due to my injury, I have to sit for sessions, and it is harder. The other thing I do is that I actually have a couple of different special kind of pillows or cushions, and they have these that are specifically made for people with back issues, or issues of various kinds, that actually help really make clear where your sits bones are, and it helps your posture.
Are you talking about lumbar pillows?
It's not a lumbar pillow that goes behind your back. It's actually a cushion that you sit on.
Oh.
So
it rocks your pelvic girdle under.
Yes, exactly.
So that kind of lengthens the spine, and it puts you on top of the iliac bones of the pubic structure.
Are you talking about the donut pillows?
I don't know the terminology.
It's something similar to that. It's a way of making sure that your spine is not collapsed on itself.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, I'll have to look more into that.
I would check into that, because again, I have one that I use when I'm sitting for long periods of time, and it helps lengthen my lower back and my pelvic region, because that part tends to get kind of crampy and uncomfortable for me. So there's a few different versions. Again, if you email me later, I'll send you to the link to the ones I use. But any kind of relax the back store will probably have some, and you'll feel it when you sit on one. It like immediately props you up, and it's like, ooh, this is great.
That's great.
And John, thank you for talking fancy. You're the best. I was too shy. I'm like, you talk so fancy. I love it. It's great. I need you there to talk fancy for me. All right, so we have a few more questions. Thank you so much, Addie.
Thank you.
Isabella. Hi, Isabella.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Great. I just had a quick question about, you kind of mentioned playing with the distance from your microphone. And I know there's like the general rule of using your hand, away from the microphone and such like that. But I was thinking too about your speaking volume. Obviously, it varies with different projects and different vocal effects. But if you're doing a long audiobook or something, what kind of volume and support do you like to sustain your voice for these projects? What would you recommend?
I'll let you answer that, John, since you're more of a narration person.
You're always trying to split the difference between presence on the microphone and proximity effects. If you get too close to the mic, like if I get really close to the mic, then I'm going to get booming at low frequencies, wowing. You're going to hear a lot more of the mouth noise. If you get too far away from the mic, then you lose presence. I don't know how else to describe it. There's
intensity.
The voice is sitting in the room in a certain way. You have to be close enough to the mic that it makes the voice sound like it's right inside someone's head.
Yeah.
You get too close, then it's booming, and so you have to kind of play with that a little bit, and you have to adjust not only your distance from the mic, but the gain on the microphone itself.
Oh yeah, that's key. Are you using a gain on your preamp?
Yeah, I'm still playing with the technical aspects. My home studio is pretty new, so I'm playing with that.
Basically, you just experiment with different settings until you find something that to you sounds like it's clear and it's really present there on the mic.
And sorry, continue.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I wanted to ask about the vocal support. Like if you suggest projecting a lot to sustain the voice, or really kind of backing off and using a softer voice for long periods of spoken dialogue.
For long periods, I think you want to try and make sure that you're not straining,
Mm-hmm.
because that's also going to read in the recording. If I'm pushing really hard, it puts a kind of metallic edge on the sound.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure that you want to make sure that you're supported, that you're not just producing the sound in the back of your throat, because that's going to tire your cords out as well. But you want to use only as much energy as you need to use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It also allows you a certain amount of dynamic freedom.
Right.
If you're blaring the whole time, then you really don't get any kind of variation in the read.
Mm-hmm.
If, on the other hand, you're using kind of a soft approach, then you can speak a little louder or you can speak softer. You have more dynamic variation.
Something John and I discussed recently was actually, you have to find a place where it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
There should be a point when you're talking, when you're phonating in any way, singing, where it's just easy. It's just effortless. And, if you're straining in any way, then there's something going on. Either you're not supported from down below, or you have tension in your neck. There's something going on. I mean, if you're doing a long-term narration, obviously, like John said, you want to be supported, but, you don't want to be pushing it either. And he talked about that with the fine line in between. It should be easy. You're not doing a character. You're doing a long-form narration where you're going to be doing something for a long period of time. There should be a point when it's pretty effortless.
Okay, great. I actually have something to add just as a helpful note. I have extensive experience as a singer,
Cool.
and so we were talking about clearing phlegm and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite techniques is to gargle with warm salt water.
Mm-hmm.
It really, really helps, and for sore throats too, or dryness, it really, really helps. Also using a neti pot to clear out sinus cavities. It's gross, but it works.
Yeah.
The other thing that a lot of my friends swear by is gargling with apple cider vinegar. That also helps clear out the
I
gunk
haven't.
in the
That's a
throat.
new one. That's a new one.
It doesn't taste good, but it does help. So.
It's also supposed to be very good for acid reflux.
Really?
Yes, it is.
I didn't know that. I
People
don't
say
want to try that.
Take a shot.
I'll take your word for that. No, that's cool. And that's a good point. I didn't really add any of the neti pot stuff on here, and that would have been a really good thing to mention. Thank you for bringing it up. Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. And thank you.
No, thank you, Isabella.
All right, bye.
Bye. All right. So we're going to go down here to John. John Davis. Oh, John Raymond. Sorry, John Davis. You're right next to John Raymond.
Oh,
Hi, John.
not a problem at all.
How are you, John?
We Johns get confused with a lot of other Johns. I want to thank you very much, Cristina and John, for this presentation. I think it's an excellent element that's been missing in my research into voiceover. I'm going to be training shortly with Bill DeWeese next week, in fact.
Cool.
Because I need that coaching. But I'm learning now, after all my research, that I want to get a little bit more focused on my internal character, which is a fun-loving creature, where I was most suited to narration in the past and commercial work. I'm finding I have less interest in that now, and I'd like to push the envelope and pursue character voicing.
Yay!
One of the things that happens with me, because I have not only a back condition, I have a spinal fusion appliance in my back. So I stand on a raised stool. So your advice is very sound there. It works great for me. Keeping one foot up seems to help a great deal. Leaning forward, as you said, John, seems to help me a great deal. But one of the concerns that I do have also is acid reflux. And I've been dealing with that most of my life. I've got that under control. I steer away from dairy. What I'm curious about, you haven't talked much about sugar content and how that can affect it, because I'm a sugar junkie. So you talk about soda and caffeine as being, I love my coffee too, but I have to have the White Death in it, the creamer. So I'm wondering if that might be the cause of some of my my problems with phlegm and mucus on occasion.
It it could be. John, do you know much about this?
I'm also I have a terrible sweet tooth, and I used to drink my coffee like hot coffee ice cream. That's sweet and light.
Like everyone's like a caramel macchiato, in other words.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Now I've had to give up processed sugar for the most part, and part of that is related to the acid reflux.
Yes, that's a good point. I steered away from white sugar a long time ago and white flour.
Right.
It makes a big difference. So I do have a fairly healthy lifestyle. That is my one serious vice, along with the odd cigarette, but that's another story.
Yeah, I've been there as well. I would say if you institute, there's a certain type of phonation that you can do as a part of a warm-up drill that will help to break up the mucus. I do when I'm going to be recording, and I use the same simple exercises every time that I record. And part of that has to do with humming. I use an M with a kind of open jaw but closed lips. And I use the sound to kind of scour the inside of my skull.
Excellent.
And you vibrate all of those you have these sinus cavities and the kind of soft tissue portals in the back of the pharyngeal cavity. And you can open those up and get vibration going up in there, and it just loosens everything up. It's not going to completely eliminate the mucus, but it does get a lot of it moving, and it kind of opens up all of these resonating chambers up in your skull.
Excellent. I'll add that to my regimen. It makes perfect sense. I'll add that to my regimen, and after I do my mouth clearing, my mouth noise clearing exercise taught by Bill DeWeese as using my tongue to clean out peanut butter. It suggests you imagine you've had a tablespoonful of peanut butter, and you have to now go and eliminate any residual traces of peanut butter from your mouth, and it really cleans your voice up, your vocal cavity and your mouth noise. So I'll add that to the resonance exercises I learned from Cristina in her interview with Bill DeWeese the other day. So I'll increase my vocal cavity, I'll do the humming, and I'll do the cleaning, and everything should be fine.
Cool.
Yep.
I brush my teeth right before a voiceover too. That's the other
I tend to do that as well. I find it makes a real difference because everything is more fluid without being juicy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So there is one other question that I have.
Okay.
And when I do character voices, because I'm in a lower register along with John, sometimes I can really aggravate my chords by going to a deep gravel voice if I do Yosemite Sam. I can't do that for a very sustained period of time without it causing me pain, and also I will start to lose my voice. Is there anything I can do to alleviate the effects of that?
I'll let you talk about it first, John, since it's your vocal type.
There's a fine line between bass resonance and gravel.
Yes.
A lot of times the gravel comes from, there are the vestibular folds, which are also known as lenticular folds or false vocal cords, that are on the sides of your actual vocal cords. And it's by activating those normally that you get a certain amount of that gravel sound. Like you hear it, the Tuvan throat singers of Mongolia.
Right.
There's a kind of, there are two different forms of what they call kumi, which is the throat singing. There's the low form, and that involves them doing a kind of
Right. No,
they can produce those sounds for quite a while, and it doesn't seem to destroy their voices. I would say if you're doing a gravelly character like that, in between takes, think about almost like what it's like when you yawn, that lift of the soft palate.
Yes.
That expands the back of all that soft tissue in the back of your throat when you're going for the gravel, you're tending to constrict, and you're pushing down a bit on your larynx,
Yes.
and so that's going to make you sore. You can ameliorate some of the soreness by in between takes lifting your palate, lifting your pitch. I can speak, in a much higher voice than the one that I normally use to communicate, and that kind of lifts my soft palate a bit, and it takes some of the pressure off of my larynx.
So maybe that's like a lot of the warm-ups that I do, where you push your range and your diaphragmatic placement as you're expelling air.
You want to
Maybe
use
that
as
helps.
use as little air as possible,
Yeah.
because that will dry your cords out as well.
Yes. Oh my
You want to
God.
try and find the kind of there's a drill that singers use to get a clean contact of the cords, using as little air as possible. And it gives you a vibration without pushing air around the tone.
Right.
When you're doing the kind of gravelly voices, you're always going to be putting a little bit of strain on your cords. There's just no way around it.
Yeah.
Well, and when I do, the only thing that really does seem to help, which has been mentioned several times already, is gargling with salt water. And I use
Yes.
sea salt, actually. I find it's more effective. But I also find that it can dehydrate me a fair bit.
Yeah, well, it's salt.
Yeah.
It's going to have that effect.
Any kind of an airy voice, you have to think of it like similar to windburn. Any
Right.
kind of, even if it's a real sexy airy voice, that's gonna lose. Even if it's really quiet, it can make you lose your voice as well. So on the
Wow, my
opposite side
hair.
of that, yeah. So it's
That was pretty airy. My hair blew back all the way over here.
So I would say, in between takes, John, you should work on just lifting your palate. Think the yawn.
Right.
And
Excellent.
that
Well,
will,
I've been out of, I was in radio in the 80s for a little over for a little over a decade, and I've done, local radio for ever since, just on demand for people. And it's only in the last 6 months that I've gotten serious about doing my own voiceover business. I'm done working in the professional sector and have been downsized several times. I have a lot in common with a lot of the coaches that I've talked to. And so I find now what I'm learning is the more important thing is to look at it from a very practical performance perspective, and that the physiology of it is extremely important. And I can't tell you how wonderful it is that you brought all these diagrams, even the mucus diagram, because it's so great. I mean, just you bringing it up, Christina, while John was talking about it, is looking at it and visualizing what's happening in there makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate your advice and your approach, and proud to be a new member of VGGA.
Oh, yay! Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Cool. Well, and I want to talk about that just for a little bit from my perspective, in terms of the character work and the gravelly voice and all that kind of stuff. Personally, if there's something that tires my voice out pretty quickly, it's not a voice I do.
Right.
And the reason why is because, and that's also in part why I've been a character voice actor for 23 years. All of the stuff I do is crazy. Screaming, yelling, crying. Like, I do the crazy, like, gibberish, like the weird extreme stuff. Pterodactyl noises, growling. That's my specialty, is just all that, like, all the weird stuff. But, you can't, if it's hurting your voice right away, it's not a good voice to do.
Leave it alone. Yeah, I agree with you. One of the problems that I have is I was a huge Mel Blanc fan as a kid. I'm 55, so I grew up with that. And the characters that I used to do were all imitations of people doing character voices. And it's only in the last 5 or 6 years that I've come up with some really serious characters of my own.
Hmm.
And I find that those don't hurt my voice, and there's a lot more characterization available because I've invented that
Yeah,
being.
absolutely.
So
It's
yeah,
going to be
I
much better
appreciate
coming
your
from an original place. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And again,
It's
one of the reasons why John and I are doing all of this and why we're starting on this adventure is because I mean, my vision with vocal technique is that most of the vocal technique that's out there is for singers. And so voice actors have to go and like study singing, but it doesn't really there's very few places where you can find, okay, how does this relate to my voiceover work?
right. Right. That's
And
what I've learned. I've
right.
experienced the same thing.
And
That's
so,
why I got really excited when I knew that you were offering this
oh,
with my
good. Well, and
classes.
that's
So
our goal. Is, eventually, like what I'd like to do and what we're working on is developing a product that's specifically just vocal. And what we're teaching is vocal technique for voice actors, but also, eventually really identifying, especially for character actors, what are safe placements to use, what are safe effects to use. What can you do with your voice that's extreme, and how do you support that in a healthy way? Because,
right.
again, it's just so there's no information about how do you make these weird noises and not, risk possibly damaging your vocal cords permanently. So again,
Well,
just we're
there is now.
we're working on it. All right,
There
thank
is
you,
now.
John.
Thanks so much, Christina and
Oh, and
John.
you should look at Brian Sommer on our list and David Rosenthal. They're our two character coaches, and they are ridiculous. Brian Sommer is one of the best. They're both phenomenal. David's been coaching for 25 years. Brian Sommer has done over 150 video games. They're both just amazing. So you should
That's
check them out.
great. That's great. I looked at the roster last night, so I'll eventually be talking to all of you, I think.
Sounds good. Take care, John.
Thank you.
All right. All right, moving on. So, okay. Heidi? 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 Hello, hello. Oh, Heidi. Okay. Heidi doesn't want to talk, I guess.
She's hiding.
Heidi's hiding? Okay. Just kidding, Heidi. Okay. Let's see. Cody? Hi, Cody.
Oh, hello. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Just
What can we
excited to
do
come
for
here and
you?
listen to you guys. I'm kind of new to this. Like, I don't even, I've been building into voiceover, and I haven't really even auditioned or anything yet. I'm still very new to it. And everybody already asked a bunch of great questions as far as vocally, like performing things, warming up things. So I guess the only question is I have as a guy who's a big learning nerd and likes to know this kind of stuff. Do you have any recommendations for like finding out more about like the anatomy of the throat? Like, do you have like personal things that you enjoy referencing for that kind of thing?
Oh my goodness. I do. John, what do you have?
I'm going to pass on this one and let you take it.
I'm going to
Uh,
show you my favorite book. Let me find it on the internet here. My favorite book as an anatomy nerd is called What Every Singer Needs to Know About the Body. And let me see if I can find a picture. Here is a picture. This book is ridiculous. I love this book. Anyone who's an anatomy nerd who doesn't mind, lots of really in-depth like crazy anatomy stuff, you are gonna love this book. This book is so amazing. Blew my mind when I read it. I devoured the entire thing. My mother thought it was crazy. Thought I was crazy. She thought it was like the worst part of her entire doctorate program. My mother was required to read this for her doctorate in vocal performance. And it's literally goes into the anatomy and the physiology of every single apparatus in the throat and how to innervate it, meaning how to actually feel what it's doing and what sounds it produces. Absolutely mind-blowing book.
Awesome. Awesome. I wish I had anything else. I just
Well,
everybody asked a bunch of great questions. Everybody came prepared. So
yeah.
I'm really glad I just got to be here with you guys. I'm looking forward to getting into voiceover and possibly character at some point. So um,
Fantastic.
are you guys? Oh, here's a good, easy question. Will you guys be doing more webinars just so we can keep up with you guys?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and that's a really good point. So again, we are a new company. We launched in the fall of last year, but we intend we are growing, and we're growing very quickly. We have started a YouTube channel, which is where this will be posted. It's the second webinar that we've done. We will be continuing to do free webinars that are educational for the voiceover community, all with voiceover experts, either myself leading or interviews and presentations with other voiceover experts on our team on various topics. Our coaches represent every major area of voiceover: character, audiobook, our narration documentary, museums. We have vocal technique. We also have Spanish voiceover coaching now as well. We just hired Joyce Castellanos, who's our promo coach, for those of you who know who that is. Elaine Clark, who's the owner of Voice One in San Francisco. That's been a voiceover school for 30 years. These people are absolutely amazing. So we will be holding free webinars, hopefully on a very regular basis. We're working on doing that. So, if you are interested in being emailed when I do one, please just send me an email at Cristina at Global Voice Academy. Or another way is that if you register on our site, if you sign up and create a profile, you're automatically added to that list. So that actually may even be the easiest way. And then you can, create a profile on there regardless. And connect with other voice talent. We have a very cool little community. We do Google Hangout groups for free, workout groups, connecting people all over the country for commercial workouts and character workouts. And if that's something you're interested in, again, you can just go ahead and register on the site. Or, again, feel free to send me an email and we'll get you taken care of. So thank you so much for your interest. But yeah, we really, it's the voiceover community is an amazing community of people, and we want to do as much as we can to help everyone who doesn't necessarily have the resources in their city, to get some of these quality educational sources. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm definitely nowhere near any of those cities, so I really am glad you guys do this kind of stuff.
Cool. Well, thank you, Cody.
Yeah, thank you, Christina and John. Awesome to be here.
All right, cool. So I think we have time for a few more questions. We're a little over our hour, but that's cool. That's cool. Let's go to the Susans. There's like 3 Susans, all who have a question. Okay, Susan Maisel. Hello, Susan? Susan? Just in case. Okay, I guess not on Susan Maisel. So we'll try Susan Johan. Susan? Susan Johan? No? Okay. The Susans are silent. Silent Susans. Richard. Hi, Richard.
Hello there, you two. Thank you very much for putting this one on.
Hello. You're welcome. What can we do for you?
Couple of quick questions for both of you, really. I've found out that during voice sessions, especially for long duration e-learning, this and the other, my voice starts off normally like this, and by the time I've ended up finishing, it's halfway up here. What's the best way to reset it?
Good question.
I lighter is sometimes the better way to go. We all of us, especially men, we all want to be doing the kind of basso profundo. When I started at the conservatory, for the first 2 years, they wouldn't let me speak in a bass tone.
Right.
They kept saying, lift your palate. And for a lot of applications, actually, the mid-range, and especially the upper mid-range, is preferable. The bass tones are soothing, but that's not necessarily an advantage when you're doing e-learning. It soothes people. You have a very kind of nice woody voice, and that could soothe people to the point where they're yes, it's exactly it. It's like, oh,
that's the problem. I'm doing hypnosis at the moment, so.
Are you really?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Oh, okay.
That's cool. That's pretty fun.
Well, it's perfect for that.
Yeah. Are you putting your voice in a low place to do it, like lower than your normal speaking range?
No, this is my normal speaking range, but it's a matter of my morning voice is just appalling. It's I mean, it's what, 10 o'clock in the evening for me now, so it's about a half an octave lower than this. I
Yeah,
can't use that for narration. It's just obscene.
yeah. I would try to keep, for most narrative purposes, the upper mid-range is preferable.
Hmm.
If your throat is relaxed, you're going to get bass notes underneath it. You're going to get overtone series above it. But your focus is here on the upper mid-range because it's bright.
Right, I see.
So, when I'm doing, I used to do all of the e-learning material for Symantec and Oracle and EMC and a lot of Silicon Valley firms.
Mm-hmm.
And I would try always to keep my voice in an upper mid-range, especially when you've got technical material. It's just clearer.
Mm.
Otherwise, people will be falling asleep listening to me.
Mm.
Just really quick, and again, it's this is just a different perspective, and I don't know exactly what's going on with your voice without kind of seeing what you're doing, where you're starting and where you're ending. If you're finding that at the end your voice has gotten really high because it's tense, that could be that you're raising your larynx without meaning to. And if your larynx is raised, a lot of times we raise our larynx inadvertently because we're tired, because we're tense, because we're nervous, and it tends to have that high kind of sound. And if that's what's going on, your voice will just end up getting tighter and tighter and higher because your larynx has been raised.
Well, I actually. Oops.
Are you sitting or standing?
I'm sitting.
When you work, you're sitting?
Mm-hmm.
You might try standing.
Right, fair enough then.
Cool. So yeah, and again, all these things are just, and if you know any lower larynx exercises, then you can also bring your larynx down and make sure it's in a low, relaxed position. If you're not sure how to do that, that's something you should do either one-on-one with maybe either John or me, or just to show you, because again, if your larynx is raised and high, that can cause that additional tension as well. So knowing how to control your larynx position, I know for me, like I have to do a lot of voices that are really high and squeaky all the time. And afterwards, I have to I have to be able to lower my larynx in order to get it in a more relaxed position. So again, there's a number of possibilities of things that could be going on. But from all the things John and I just said, hopefully one of those in there is helpful.
Well, I had a really, really, really bad acid reflux last year, and I lost my voice for about 10 weeks. The doctor said that I speak so far from the back of my throat rather than the front. That was the only reason I managed to keep the voice, but it's never been the same since. It's become a lot warmer. So that's acid turned out to be heavy meals before dinner. So anybody else, don't do that, please.
Right.
It's not.
That's another one. So, and again, all of that, once you've had an issue, and then you tend to, take more care of it later. I know John and I both have had our fair bout of issues, but, and if you use your voice all the time, then stuff is going to come up because you're using it all the time. So hopefully that's helpful.
It is. The last question, what are your opinions, both of you, on live monitoring your voice versus not, as in listening in whilst you're speaking?
My friend and colleague at the GVEA, Stephen Reesberg, he has people audition without using the cans, without headphones, because he feels like he gets a more lively read from them. I personally, because I'm doing my own engineering most of the time now, I have to have the headphones on. That's the only way I know whether I'm getting a decent take or not.
Yeah.
I'm the same.
I don't use headphones. I think it's just a preference. It helps me. It's just, just whatever works best for you. I think just however you, record with them and record without them and see which way you sound better.
When I worked for the Discovery Channel, I would go into the studio and I'd put on one headphone.
Yes.
I would have one on my ear and one off to the side of my head. So, whatever works.
Yeah, got it.
Right then. Thank you very much, you
All
two.
right, thank you.
Welcome.
All right,
Have a good day.
I think we have time for one more question, and then that is probably it. So, okay, so I'm gonna take Kenny. Um, Kenny?
Hello.
Hi, Kenny.
Yeah, hi, you hear me?
Yeah, how
Hi.
are you?
Yeah, I'm good, good. I'm glad I got to wrap this up, or hopefully. Anyway, um,
And
yeah,
for our grand finale.
I've been trying to make little notes. I first raised my hand because I just had a comment on something that somebody else said. Now I've been trying to take little notes. The first thing that I had to comment on was people sitting versus standing, and what I wound up doing was getting a drafting chair.
Yeah.
Which, because the drafting chair has a foot ring on it, so you can adjust the height of the foot ring to make the height of your feet as you're sitting more comfortable. And I tend to sit up very straight in that chair for some reason, but because of the placement of my feet, I think.
Cool.
So it's almost like I'm standing, only my butt's supported. So, you know, that's yeah.
Gotta have the butt support.
Yeah. So that was the first thing. Then there was the cat that was talking about doing gravelly voices. I'm actually have 24 or 25 credits as Bowser for Nintendo now.
Oh, cool.
Oh, okay.
And then you talk about painful.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, this is my normal speaking voice, and you know what Bowser sounds like, or you know, maybe you do, but
do you want to do it?
It's all I can't.
Oh, okay, don't. We want to hurt you.
No, it's all growling, it's all roaring, it's all snarling, and while I'm in doing sessions for that, my only advice to somebody who's having either locking up or painful, you know, because of that type of sound, me it's just frequent breaks.
Yeah.
As much as the producer that I worked with the most for these sessions was constantly asking me if I wanted to take breaks, and I would be all like, no, I'm just going to plow through this.
Right.
And then you wind up tasting blood.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
You know, so.
Yeah, you want to be a trooper, but you know.
Oh yeah.
No, and
you know,
a good director will know. You know, they know that they're asking you to do something that's really, you know, that's gonna take it out of you. So.
Look out for yourself as well and take those breaks.
Yeah, I had to come up with Meowser, what we jokingly called Meowser, on the fly on the last session that I did with them. It was a combination of Bowser and Bowser turns into a cat. So they called him Cat Bowser, and because there's a Cat Mario, you know, and so it was Meowser, and they said, so we need to come up with that, and I said, well, what do you want me to do? And they were like, well, yeah, they said we're gonna leave that to you, you know.
I think you and I would get along because that's all the crazy stuff I do.
Well, what I wound up doing was this roaring Bowser sound combined with a wildcat kind of a at the same time.
Cool.
And doing them at the same time was really insane, but the Japanese liked it, so they approved it, and I was very happy about that.
Yeah.
And my last comment, I don't want to take up too much more of anybody's time. My last comment that I wrote down here, I forget what her name was. I should have been writing people's names down because they're probably still listening. She was talking about long form
narration.
And yeah, I think it was a she. Might have been a guy.
Yep.
Now I don't even remember.
I think that was Isabella, but I couldn't
tell. I've been doing some audiobooks, and it's a challenge. First of all, that's for certain. But I've had times where I go upstairs, I record in what most of us start off with for a recording booth, which is a walk-in closet, but I'd come right back downstairs, and my wife would be like, what happened? And I'm like, I don't like the way I sound. So, I mean, if you have the luxury of being able to put it off, if you're not happy with the way you sound, walk away from it for a little while, because if you don't, you just wind up straining yourself trying to make yourself sound like you want to sound.
Yep.
That's my advice on that, is walk away if you can for a little while.
I don't record past 6 o'clock in the evening usually.
Yeah.
Because I'm just tired. Like it doesn't sound as good. My energy isn't good. I want to watch TV and be a bum. So, you got to get to know yourself and like what you're, when you're best and yeah, exactly when to walk away. So,
Yes, if you're self-recording, then there's no shame with just going, you know what? I'm just going to go outside for a minute and pet the dog or something, and then come back, and maybe you'll sound different when you come back because you're more relaxed.
all
So
right. Cool. Well,
that's
thank
all
you
I
so
got on
much
that.
for your
But
comments, Kenny. I appreciate
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And
I'm
thanks for listening
quite
in.
pleased, to get to speak with you guys, and I try to jump on, as many webinars and stuff as I can between you guys now and Bill.
Yeah.
Bill's just insane. The
Bill's
amount of
amazing.
material he puts out.
Absolutely. He's so cool. And he's what inspired me to make this YouTube channel because, it's just making this information accessible to people is really, really important. And I think as a voiceover community, we really do. It's such an isolating field. We need to reach out to each other. We need to help each other, help educate each other in the areas where we all have different strengths. And every person I've ever met in the voiceover community is just, for the most part, 99.99% just phenomenal. Just cool people, laid back, fun, smart, usually kind of silly too, have a goofy side or some kind of, just
Seems to be that way, yeah.
yeah, and it's just, I think the more we all reach out to each other and help each other, the better. So, I agree, and thanks for hopping on with us. So,
Right on. Thanks for having us all.
all right, well, okay, so that's about it for this today, and thank you guys all for your questions. Again, if you do want to hear more about the webinars and classes that we have coming up, obviously we have regular group classes, one-on-one coaching. We also do home studio consultation if you need help dialing in your studio. We also have demo production. We've basically become just all voiceover resources in one place with an emphasis and an expert in every genre. So if you do need anything, any kind of voiceover service, please feel free to contact us. And we do intend to continue doing free educational webinars on a regular basis. So thanks so much for listening, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend.